Thank you, everyone, for being here. And Abir, I think we should start with giving a little bit of an introduction to who you are as a photo editor and a photographer. Maybe you can kind of introduce yourself, and people who are listening in, please feel free to leave any questions, but put them in the Q&A box. So if you have any questions for Abir, please do not put them in the chat. They usually get lost, but put them in the Q&A. So Abir, over to you.
Thank you. It's very interesting history or story. For me, as a photographer, I had the opportunity to study at Pathshala South Asian Media Institute in the 90s. And I had the opportunity to meet so many humble and polite people like Ruth Icahn from Geo magazine, Barbara Strauss from Mare magazine, Molly Roberts, Ami Pereira from the New York Times. In fact, I had the opportunity to work with New York Times. So basically, they came over to Dhaka for doing photo editing workshop. So that was kind of the beginning. And I was so impressed the way they taught us about photo editing. But that time I was a student. And then I completed my 1-year diploma in photojournalism. But I have always in my mind that, okay, this profession, photo editor, is lacking in Bangladesh. So maybe one day I will be trying to be a photo editor. And then I joined with the European Press Photo Agency as a Bangladesh correspondent. So that is another professional development. So I work with international editor like Maria Mann. She was my best mentor and editor. So I worked with her. Yes.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting that at that time I was thinking, okay, I'm now working, I have physical strength, I can go to field. But what happened when I don't have that physical strength? So I thought, okay, I should request to the desk, which is based in Frankfurt, for photo editing post. But it didn't happen. I'm still working. I still go to the field and taking photos, chasing cyclones. That's the spirit of my photographic character.
And when did you request for a post at the desk?
No, I was thinking. I
thought you did ask them, and then it didn't happen, and now you're still
So then I left EPA because I want to do my own work, and I start to join as a principal of Pathshala. And in the meantime, I got an offer from this the largest Bangla newspaper in Bangladesh to be working in as editor.
What is the name of that newspaper?
It's called the Daily Prothom Alo. Daily means the Doinik Prothom Alo. Doinik is the daily.
Okay.
But I was hesitating because before me there were 3 photo editors, and none of them could survive. So my question was the editor, why did they couldn't survive?
Yeah.
And then he was kind of not answering my question directly. So he invited me twice at his house and asked and requested me to join, but I refused twice. But finally, I agreed on the basis of that, okay, I could join with you, but as and consultant to the photography department, helping photographers, training up, and somehow advice to policy making, and especially using photographs and how interestingly we can use photograph in the newspaper. But after 2 years, then the COVID situation was terrible. So I did work staying at home and work with the editor. So we had the argument and debate all the time. But finally, I managed to create this photo editor post. But unfortunately, it lasted a very short period of time. It's only 8 months professional life of my photo editing. And that's a bit of my photo editing journey. But I'm really grateful to those the people who I was fortunate enough to meet and learn so many things about photo editing. And I also learned from the book Pictures on a Page by Harold Robbins. So that was fantastic book about photo editing. It's big, old, but it is, I think it's an iconic book for photo editing. I tried to learn professionally, but I didn't find any course. So I asked several friends, and they told me, look, Abir, you have to learn through experience. So then, because I also started teaching. So while I teach storytelling, so photo editing is also part of this process of visual storytelling. So that's why it's my kind of in my blood that photo editing is of course one of my very, very interesting and important area to explore.
And what is it that draws you towards photo editing specifically? And there was one thing you mentioned, which I really totally agree with. There are not enough ways to be educated as a photo editor specifically. I think there are a few universities that offer photo editing, but it's very limited still. It would be interesting to have that coming into our industry a bit more. But what is it that you like about it?
No, exactly. That the course perhaps is not available in the West, and think about the Asian region. It's not available at all. But this is such an important issue because photograph, we cannot think a day without a photograph, and especially in the newspaper. There is a survey that we use 70% photos and 30% words in the newspapers.
Yeah.
So, but the importance of visuals are very high. But then the use of photographs or the knowledge of the visuals is very, very lacking in our part of this world. So that's why one of my interests was to educate myself first, and then to educate rest of the people of our industry, to make them understand, look, this is a craft. And we call photojournalism, but we only practice journalism. So where is the photo? Where is the application of a good photograph? So that was initially, that was the idea to become a photo editor, not to enrich myself, but to enrich the industry as a whole.
And I think there's, especially in Bangladesh, I'm guessing there was a lot to gain there in visual literacy as well. I mean, it's all around the world where photography, I mean, being a photographer is one thing, but making good edits and teaching other people how to make good edits is incredibly difficult. It's something I teach editing in school sometimes, but I also know that editing my own work is nearly impossible. Editing someone else's work is a bit easier, but it's not easy to edit. So it's an extremely important job. When you were working at the newspaper, what were your major responsibilities? Were you sending out photographers a lot, or was it mainly getting work in from pitches, or?
I was responsible for the whole country. Can you imagine one person dealing with
Wow.
almost 50 photographers? But basically, since this is a city-based newspaper, so the main focus was mainly about city news and events. But I often send photographers with the featured stories because, news don't happen every day.
No.
And feature has a very different interest to the audience. Human stories, positive stories, and something innovative stories going on. So that has a value, that has interest to the audience always. So I gave them assignment beside the regular assignments, and of course we had to do assignments on the basis of the PR. That means the events which is happening around the city, press conference, something is opening, book launching, or some events is happening. So that is the event-based assignments. But I started to make a full page story, photo story. That was, I started as something which was new. And I managed to convince the editor, look, give me just one page. I want to make a change.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I want to give the audience that with several photos, we can tell a story in a better way.
What did
And
they
then
think of it? How was the response from within the newspaper to this page?
it was very good from the audience and also from the photographers, the other photographers. It's not a very big community, it's a small community, but everyone appreciated it and appreciated the page, especially once in a week that the full page photo essay was published. And it was kind of my initiative. And I actually wanted the photographers to learn more about storytelling, and not just with a single image, but with more photographs, and tell the story with a bit of more depth and research.
So when you make edits or when you are teaching editing, how do you do this? What is your advice to students or to photographers who were making stories for you? Because isn't editing also something personal in a way? You like a picture, you don't like a picture.
That is very much subjective. Whatever you want to say, we can never be objective. But when it is personal, but at the same time, I have two formulas. I'm telling the truth. I'm
I'm
telling my
writing them down. Two formulas. Yes, I'm ready.
secrets are the artistic merits and the journalistic merits. So I always try to make my students or make my photographer understand that a good photo should have both artistic merit and journalistic merit. An artistic merit which has actually the visual quality, the use of light, use of color, use of moment, and of course with the relevancy of the topic. And journalism merit means that which is not told, which can be told in a very different way, because we often repeat the same stories in the same angle. So sometimes we need to change our angle to see something in a very different way. So that combination of artistic and the journalistic approach were kind of my main formulas to educate them. So when we see the photos, the kind of bulk photos, so it was kind of easy to figure out and to, kill the what photos very easily.
Yeah.
So we can easily pick up the good ones on the basis of these, artistic merits.
Would you rather go through really large edits with photographers and students, or do you ask them to narrow things down before they show it to you?
No, it's always, I would encourage them to edit a version of their own, because that is also important, because they know how to edit.
Yeah.
Because it's always, you told that it is difficult to edit our own work, but I think at the end, we are the photographers. We are going to the field. We know the better than the editors. So we should have our own voice. We should have our own evaluation. We should have our own editing criteria.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it is very much true that we love every photos.
Yes.
Photographer. So that's why we need photo editors. And
You can't edit your own. Exactly. You can't edit your own
editors
work.
are paid high than the photographers.
Yes.
They know the photographers. They can rely on the photographers. They can assure which photographer can deliver what I am looking for.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why the photo editor actually plays a role of a mentor also.
Yes.
So I asked them to do a small version of a big edit, like make it 30 images, and then I will make it 15 or 20. So that self-editing process actually gave them a kind of practice or experiment, and to learn editing themselves.
Mm-hmm.
But finally, I did the edit, but it's very interesting that I gave them the floor to talk, to defend about their photographs, and I listen, and that's, I think, very important, to give floor to the photographers, listen to them, what they want to say, respect their opinion, and I think that's how a good photographer can educate photo editing.
Mm-hmm. I think it's very important. Like you say, it's the photographer that's on the ground, right? So they are really the ones who can say this image doesn't work here because the story is different, or this doesn't show it in the right way, so we should take this one out, move this one in. But yeah, a good editor is something you really need as well. I'm curious, before we talk further about editing itself, I don't know a lot about Bangladesh. I'm very curious what the state of the media industry is there. Is it like very open? Can any story be published?
No, it's very complicated. It's very complicated in terms of we cannot publish anything, not only photograph, but in terms of also news. We have this Digital Security Act, on which act many journalists were arrested and put into jail. So we often listen this word freedom of speech is not very much open, that I can say. That is the general overview of freedom of speech in terms of news and journalism. But overall, in terms of photography and photojournalism, I think it's not yet up to the mark. As I said, that news room or news people or text people, they edit photos. So you can imagine their lack of knowledge, their lack of literacy about photography, and it has not been changing. We thought when we're student, we thought, okay, maybe one day we will rule, and we will go and take their places, and we will make a better role for the photographers. But it didn't happen,
No.
because majority are text-based people, and they have the master degree from journalism. But photographers, they could actually finally, maximum they could get the Bachelor of Arts in Photography, but has started very recently. So yet photography in a larger context is not at all respected in the society or by the state, or even in the family.
So by working there as a photographer and as an editor, what is that like for you, if I may ask?
It's always challenging. It's always fighting and always challenging and always keep hope for a change.
Mhm.
And I think that is more important, that this fight should be continued, because if we don't fight or if we don't talk, then who will we? And I think personally, I believe that someday it will make a change. Don't know when, but this talk should be going on. This fight should be going on. It's not. I mean fight. It's not that kind of fight. It's a kind of conversation, kind
Yeah.
of dialogue should be going on with the main editors, and to make them understand. Look, today uh, it's a world where we cannot survive a moment without visuals.
Mhm.
And of course, there are many challenges that are coming up, especially the social media is a big threat for the traditional media, and the technology AI is threatening in a different way. So, having said that, we have to be authentic and as much as possible serve the purpose for the people.
Mhm.
And that's why this conversation and dialogue should be going on. Maybe it take a bit longer, but I think we should raise a question and conversation and continue this conversation to make a change.
Yeah, it's super important. I can imagine it must be frustrating at times, and I realize how lucky I am to live here where, I mean, photography is really seen as a tool within the magazines and the newspapers. I mean, the budgets are going down, but it's definitely seen as a tool to draw more attention to stories. And I know in a lot of countries it's the other way around, where it's very text driven. And yeah, so I do feel that must be quite frustrating. Danielle is leaving a question in the Q&A box, and please, everyone who has a question, put it in the Q&A box so I see it. Danielle says, I'm Danielle Bouma. How do editors select a good... Wait, what? How the editors select good one picture for more photographers who are in the field? I'm not 100% sure what he means. How do editors select a good picture? Ah, I see. When there's more photographers in the field. So I guess when there's several of the same
Sense,
photos coming in exactly from the same moment.
yeah. No, it's very it's not very easy. Always not very easy to pick the best photo. But the basic criteria of a good photography is the technical things, as always. In terms of if it is news, so the technical perfection is the first priority. I mean, the focus, the sharpness, the light, the moment, exposure, color. So a lot of technical issues, but at the same time, I personally would like to see that the photographer brings a very different photo which is not taken by other 10 photographers. That
Mm.
means which can be taken in a very different perspective, in a different vantage point. And that photograph makes the leading photograph, perhaps.
Because it's a different one, so it stands out.
I personally believe, even today, I take the position which I call against the wind. I mean, the many photographers in one side, but I am the
Ah,
odd one to take the other end to other
uh-huh.
end, to be different, because I always want to be different. So to be different, the first criteria is to make you single out from the group
Mhm.
and find out a different place where perhaps you actually know the better position according to the direction of light, according to the location, ambience, and action going on. So that is very important for a photographer to first not to start going to take photograph, first to scan and evaluate what is the best place, is the best angle, and that can make someone different from others.
And sometimes also what I recognize in my own work is it really helps me sometimes to step back, especially when there's a lot of photographers. You're so used to them going forward, 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 and all of a sudden you're all standing in the same angle. And I sometimes really have to walk away and take space, and then you look around and you see different pictures popping up.
Completely agreed, and I follow the same rule.
Yeah, it really works well. Oh, there's a few questions coming in from Sakib. When the photo editor has limited resources, where should the best photographer be sent? The breaking news event, or to make a series or photo story for an investigative report? So this is when a photo editor doesn't have a lot of money to, like, what is more important, to send someone out on breaking news or on a series?
It depends, because if something happens in a remote place where there is a cost expenses related, for example, if something is happening in a remote place where you need to travel, so then it nets cost and time and expenses. So it depends on situation to situation, but for breaking news, of course, I would personally want to send someone who has more knowledge and experience, and both physical and mental energy.
Yeah.
Because in my experience, I have seen that many of us have physical strength, but we are not strong mentally. So when something happens very bad, very gruesome, then mentally we cannot handle. So we need both energy, physical and mental. But for long-term assignment, I think it depends on if the story is important, or if it is urgent, or if it is doing it now. And if it is important, then the breaking news, I'm not sure that breaking news is always important. So definitely I'll focus more on the breaking news and send someone who has more knowledge and experience, rather than sending someone new, because then I don't take a risk.
Then you will be taking a risk, yeah. But it's also, isn't it also a way to understand when you have really breaking news and someone needs to go and be good, you pick someone you've worked with. How does new talent, because I know from experience with 7 Insider, there's also a lot of new talent watching now. How do they then wiggle their way into this industry? Or not even wiggle, how do they walk in?
No, I think it's challenging always to fight with the experienced photographer, but for the newcomers, I always believe in that most of the professionals, they have a very serious deadline. Like, for example, for the agencies, we had to submit photos 4 p.m. in the afternoon. So after that, no way. But for the newcomers, there is no binding, there is no restriction that other photographers, the other professional photographers have. So what is perhaps the best technique can be photographing when the professionals are not in the field.
Yeah.
Then, yeah, because the best photographers like the AP, Reuters, EPA, or AP photographers are working together at the same time schedule.
That's true.
Yeah, none of them stay at night.
That's true. That's a good advice. There are some off times where people are not shooting.
And simply because of these big agency photographers, you cannot fight with them because they have the experience, they have the logistic, and they have technique to send photos to the international magazines and newspapers. But then the story of the other side is very important, because audience want to see a different story. And that's why this timing, I think, can be very interesting for the beginners and the local photographers to find a time when the professionals are not in the field and propose something interesting which is not done by the professionals. And then there is a possibility to get work.
Yeah, so it's basically jumping into the areas where there's lack of images.
Exactly. And also the side stories, because side stories means if something happens big, so the agencies are looking for bodies, and it's a kind of first day photograph. So, but for example, Guardian don't want publish the gruesome photos. New Worker, they don't publish this first day photos. And then there should be kind of a little bit research, which newspaper publish what kind of photos.
Mm-hmm.
An approach to the news editor. But before that, you have to create a network of like 10 new editors of 10 newspapers and magazines. And then you just let them know that I am here. Something is going on. Are you interested to publish my work, the work from this event? So this is the practice I often do when I was traveling to cover an assignment. I write my network that I'm covering this event, these cyclones. Would it be interested for you? So that's while I started my journey.
Mm-hmm.
Not even taking any photographs, but just to know that
just to learn to,
so
to reach out and to go and to,
So that helps sometimes, because if something happens big, and if by any chance the professionals that are not there, so you can kick the goal.
And I think you also wanted to share some pictures. Shall we?
Yeah, show my students' work.
I will make you a co-host. There we go. Now you can share. I see there's more questions coming in. Some people are accidentally putting them in the chat. Please copy paste them to the Q&A. It's another box on the bottom, so I can see them coming in.
Okay, so it's in a sec. It's again.
Yeah, you're fine.
Technical issues.
I know all about technical issues. That happens.
So here we go.
Okay.
So basically, this is a long-term project by one of my students, Iqbal Hussain. He's doing story on a big river, but which is connected to the climate change and the pollution, and how this mighty rivers has changed its riverbed or its life over the period of time due to this climate change and pollution. So he proposed me the idea, and then I wanted to, the way I work with the students is basically, then I ask to show me the example of the photographs before approving the project, because I wanted to know that how would he execute the idea, because most of the time we have interesting idea, but we don't have the idea or the knowledge to execution. So that's perhaps very important for a photographer and also the editor to examine, to check if the photographer has the ability to translate his or her idea into visuals. And then
do you then sit down or have a phone call and you talk about what is it you want to show, or do you talk about what is the story? Is it more about what it's
I discuss different aspects of his proposal. Especially, I am more concerned about if it is new, if it is if the story angle is different, if it is not different, then I would suggest him to take a different way of going for a visual approach. But for this story, the photographer wanted to do it in a very classical way of documenting the life of beside the rivers, the people, the farmers, the fishermen, and also how this river is used by the pilgrims, especially Hindu devotees during the Hindu religious festival. Yes, of course, I wanted to see the first kind of proof or first bulk of photos to examine how it is going on. And then I give feedback. And that I think that review is very important for a long-term project, because this first review, second review, and final review are always important for photographers to follow the cohesiveness of the visuals, because it's I always believe in one thing, that visual coherence is one of the main concern for a long-term project or a photo essay, that it has a unified style of the visuals, so that we can understand this is taken by a particular person and a particular point of view.
And do you feel like when a picture story comes to you and it's not finished yet, will you then give feedback on specific angles, or do you let all of that go and up to the photographer? Or will you say, oh, can you go and shoot this visual lower, higher?
No, I give feedback all the possible ways. I mean, not only the visual aspects, but also, as I said, that the angle of the story is also very important, which should be new, because if I repeat something, that means that I'm not adding something to the story. I'm wasting my energy, I'm wasting my time, and I'm wasting my money. Because if if I don't add something new to the story, then for me, then it's worthless.
Yeah. This is a beautiful story, by the way, and I see the photographer is also here.
Oh, he's here? Okay.
Yeah, because I saw a question in the chat, not in the Q&A, so please put it in the Q&A, but the question from the photographer, how do you pronounce the name of the photographer? Iqbal?
Yes, it's Iqbal.
Iqbal. So he has a question. What are the most significant things you have learned when editing photos that influence you to take decision change your story finally? Wait, do that again. What are the most significant things you have learned when editing photos that influence you to take decision and change your story finally?
It's a long question. A lot of influence. Power of the photographs, relevancy, if it is timely topic, and if it is personal. I mean, personal means that the involvement of the photographer, how involved the photographer was with his subject or with the time, how far was how rich was the research. So there are a lot of different things that I consider for the final editing and for finding the best story, selecting the best story. And I did work as a jury in the WordPress. So I could remember that in 2010, there was this Haiti earthquake. So in one stage, we ended up with 17 stories from Haiti. And, wow. And David was the chairperson at that year.
Who was the chairperson?
Dave Burnett.
Great.
So Dave said, look, come on, we don't want to make this Haiti WordPress. So what to do? So we printed all the 17 stories
Uh-huh.
and put it on the table, and then we go for like eliminating. So then how the 17 worked were completely, it's 9 out of 10. So then what was the parameter to eliminate? It's simple because of the editing. So we eliminate on the basis of the, proper editing. That means there were 12 photographs, one photographs was weak among the 12. So that was perhaps lost in the game. So this is a very simple strategy because 17 photo story are fantastic. Every story demanded the awarded to be awarded, but we have to make a decision.
Yes.
And then that was the simple trick that, okay, then we actually looked the editing of the photographers, and it was very easy to eliminate the weak editing, and then we made only 3 selection out of 17 stories. So this
That's
is
very interesting to hear, because you always, as a photographer, I don't know about the people who are now listening as well, maybe some of you are thinking the same, but somehow in the back of your mind, when you send into an award, you sometimes think, it's going to be the best picture, right? The best picture. I've been on a few juries as well, where I very quickly learned it's not just about good pictures, it's really about the editing. Because if there are doubles, you feel, okay, this photographer is not paying attention, the story is, there's a double in here, it's not a tight edit. But to me, it's very interesting because for many years I thought it's about just good pictures, but a story is not told in that way. If you only have good pictures, it's not a story necessarily.
No, it's a very good point that less is more. Have 8 good photographs, fantastic, submit it. Don't add 1 more weak photos.
Yeah.
Best photos, even if it is 8 or 10.
Yeah.
But if you make it 12 and 2 weak photos, ruin the possibilities of your acceptance and of your winning in an award.
Yeah.
So this editing, especially submitting to the contest and for grants, editing is also very important in terms of no repetition. That is a killing factor for any photographer. And especially when you are in a 4th stage or final stage of any award or contest. So yes, for this story, I literally advised him, and he followed to my advice. It's a long-term project, but I'm curious to see what else he could add to this story. I told him to follow different seasons, because in the monsoon, river it takes a very different look. So this is mostly taken in the winter, but I think I would suggest him that if he goes again in different seasons, like now the heat wave is going on, or maybe after the heat waves, maybe during monsoon when the river is full of water, then he will get something very different elements.
To also show that.
Yeah. So I think that way, if a long-term project can be interesting, if any photographer follow the season, especially if it is related with weather and climate, and that helps to extend the variety of photos.
Yeah, and it will make the story more rich as well because of that. I think you are you are photographing. I know that you're very active. You did the editing and you're also teaching, right?
I'm teaching at the Alliance Française, the Cultural Institute in Dhaka. So I'm running actually 3 courses. One is 3 months storytelling workshop, 1 year diploma in documentary photography, and one is the basic photography. But no, it's not basic in terms of technical things, but in terms of it's more about how to see things differently and use your brain, not use your camera. It's not
Yes.
about it's not only about the shutter and exposure and these technical things, but more about our perception. Why do we take photo? Why do we take photos? And what is our objective? So, and behind the making a photo. So, what are our thought process?
Mhm.
Uh, so that is, I think, very important for a beginner photographer to learn about the thought process of making any photographs.
And being able to explain as well why you are taking, yeah, that there is a thought process behind it. That's always good to share with editors, right? I see more questions coming into the Q&A. Thanks everyone for that. So one of the questions is, oh, this is, I think, from a while back. Yeah, from about 10 minutes back. So I'm not sure what we were talking about at the time, but the remark is, the approach you speak of, we called the CYA, the cover your ass, picture versus personal taste. We tried to sell the image that was more personal, but had the CYA, the cover your ass image, in case the editor would not accept it. I love that. Cover your ass. I don't remember what we were talking about, but I think it's about when you're on assignment and you said I know what this is about. You said you would move to the other side to get the different image. Yeah, that's the cover your ass image is the one that everyone has, I guess. And then if you really try to get a different angle, it's true. Sometimes it's risky business. You walk to the other side and you realize, oh, it's actually not a picture.
No, but what I actually do and ask my students and ask my fellow photographers that first do what your organization wants, what your news media wants, and then when you do it, when you have done that, then do the experiment because it's always risky, and
Yes.
you have perhaps lost your job.
Yes, it's true. Yeah, you didn't get the picture. No, I was on the other side. No, you can't.
If you're a
What's the thing,
freelancer,
Okoye, that people say? We can't print excuses. So it's very important to get the picture first, of course. Yeah.
at the end of the day, it's all about how to manage. Nobody wants to listen about excuses, especially in the organization.
No.
But for the freelancer, I think that's more this words for more for the freelance photographers who doesn't work for any newspaper or any organization or who doesn't have any formula to follow.
Yeah. That I think if you're at that stage, I agree with you. It's important to do this play around and to find new angles and new stories. There is a question from Sai, and the question is, how do I pitch stories for popular news? So if it's a newsy topic, how do you pitch to media? I think that's what Sai means. How do I pitch story for popular news?
Okay, not very clear, but I can give you a little idea about how to pitch. It's
Now, that would be
it's
very helpful also as a general thing.
I'm
Yeah.
the basis of a general point of view how to pitch to editors. This is always important that editors are very, very busy. So always make small version of your photographs if you already um, took some photos of the topic. Make a PDF, no attachment, never ever, because the photo editors, they are so busy, they don't have time to download because it's technical issues and you don't know what size you have to send, and then if you send something the bigger file, you don't get any response. This is the true and very practical issue. And it would be also interesting that if you know someone who can introduce you to the editors, for example, I started with the sentence like, uh, um, Ruth Icon, and then a story idea from Bangladesh.
Yeah, yeah.
So I send it to, for example, for Ilvy. And then you immediately see the name first. Oh, that's from Ruth. Oh, she's our great friend or known person. So then you have more interest to read and open the, the mail or
Email. Yeah, for sure.
that helps sometimes. But I think as much precise as it can be, as a text, small text, and very precise and very clear. Because often we do the mistake of making long text and very unclear what we are trying to do.
Exactly.
So what I'm saying that everything should be precise and very clear and small version and something very interesting and something even in a popular news or breaking news or feature news, something which can be, immediately grab the attention to the editors, the person who sent your mail.
Yeah.
So that's I think some sort of advice from my end.
And I think that's great advice. What I know from people watching is that they would also love advice usually if you would have still been an editor, how to contact you. But I know you are now not an editor, but maybe you do have advice on where people can actually find these contacts. Like how do they get in contact with an editor if you have no connections to them? How do you get an email address or where do you meet them?
Okay, this is easy now, but again, you need you don't have any guarantee. The LinkedIn is a good resource to find the editors. So you have to write them. Maybe you write 10 editors, maybe 2 replies.
Yes.
So that is a trick. So when I was a student, my first job was to take photograph, and second job was to write mails after mails after mails.
This sounds familiar. It's so true.
It's so true, and seriously. So I can remember that I sent 50 emails, not exactly 50, but close to that. But I didn't get a response from even 10% of them.
Yeah, it's so frustrating. And this happens.
That's the reality.
Yes.
I think a good idea is to, if you are really serious getting work, you should visit festivals. You should go for portfolio reviews. I want to say that you need to invest some money because look, it's very interesting that you want to get assignment of $1,000, but you don't want to invest something.
Yeah.
So you have to invest your time. You have to invest some money. You have to meet the photographers, the photo editors in person. That would be the best, kind of creating network. And I think it's serious people should, uh, deposit or earn money to visit festivals and apply for the portfolio reviews. That can open up doors, find someone who knows photo editors. But before that, you have to have a very strong portfolio because editors don't know by your name. They only know your work. So you have to have a strong portfolio, an interesting portfolio. That can be also interesting through even Instagram or LinkedIn. That can open sometimes chance to get work.
Yeah, I totally agree on the photo festival part as well. It's very important to get to know people in real life. There's a question from Asif, which is, what are the important elements that must be in a good story? A picture tells 1,000 stories. In that case, isn't there any possibility that an editor may not be able to see different stories, which can be seen only with time or different perspectives? What is your opinion? Do you understand I'm not fully understanding the question, but
Long. So that is the problem. You have a question, but you cannot make us clear about your question.
what are
So
the
this is an
important elements that yeah, I guess the first part of the question is quite clear. What are the important elements that a story should have? But the rest of the question I'm not very clear about.
the problem is when you tell stories, so it is obviously, since we're talking now about photography, so it's photo story, but generally story means words.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's very true. So it's better to say photo story or narrative that is more visuals. So I'm talking in on the basis of visuals. So of course, the as I mentioned earlier, that the the artistic merits or the graphics, which is the combination of light, color, timing, moments, and also the space, which is composition. So these are the main factors. But a good photograph also should have three factors, which is graphics, information, and emotion.
Mhm. Are
So
they
this
equally balanced for you? Should they be?
exactly, because if a photo has the graphically very strong, but
Mhm.
emotionally is not, and information is not, then it doesn't work.
Yeah.
So these three factors should be equally balanced. Graphically important, informative, and has emotional value.
Hmm. Yeah, when I teach, I notice that what happens a lot is that there are beautiful pictures being made, but usually the emotion is lacking. And I think the problem with emotion lacking is usually a photographer having a lack of time.
Exactly.
That's what I don't know, but that's what I feel. Yeah, that not spending enough time, so the people are afraid to show their emotion because they don't know who the photographer is.
That is one way of showing emotion, and also the understanding of the situation that photographer does. The photographer really understand the emotional value? For
Mhm.
example, if we like for Susan Sontag's The Pain of Others, so we should read and we should also read about human psychology, because we very often see the exterior character. We don't see the interior character of a person. And you are very true that we need to invest time to get that emotion, to get that moment that has emotional value. And that is time consuming, and sometimes it depends on luck, and opportunity, and access, and trust. What
True.
other issue?
I think that is the danger. I don't know, maybe you can elaborate. We're going a bit over time, but I'm curious. I think a big issue with international media is that the budgets are shrinking, sadly. I think a lot of photographers that are here with us now can, yeah, feel this in the industry. Um, what is this like in Bangladesh? You mentioned earlier that photography within the newspapers is not really the main, I mean, the text, it's text driven. Um, do you notice that a lack of funding for photography is problematic there, or?
Yeah, it's always the money is a big issue. So I can remember and I can tell you that only 3 or 4 newspaper can pay well.
Hmm.
So that is the overall scenario. And of course, even I had a huge argument with the main editor when I wanted to buy new equipments for my photographers.
And the
They
editor
found
didn't want to.
No, it's very interesting that the editor said that this $10,000 equipment can produce good photograph.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah, sure that. What to say,
Yeah, they don't understand that it's also up to the photographer.
It's up to the photographer, his knowledge, and also where and how he wants to take photograph. It's not only about the gear.
No, I often have that and I think many people do, you've probably had this, when you take a good picture and people compliment you, maybe in an email or on social media, they're always like, great picture, what camera did you use?
Exactly. So what is fast, not, and they often forget that the
Is
man takes the photo, not the machine.
Yeah, very true. There are 3 questions left in the chat, which I'm going to get to now. Atiol is asking, why do you prefer black and white than colors in editing? I'm not sure if you do you? You show the black and white story, but
I think someone from my non-group. It's not true. I do my personal project in black and white, but for my career with EPA, European Press Photo Agency, I had to take all the photos in color.
Yes.
So yes, that's true that I choose black and white for my own projects, and especially the projects which actually demands black and white, not color, because there is a logic. The logic is we often see color, we don't see black and white real time. So when we see a good color photograph, but the next moment we see another good color photograph, the first photograph actually is erased from our memory. But black and white photograph lasts a bit longer because of its abstract quality.
Interesting. Okay, I didn't know that. I can understand that.
That is one of my logic. And the second logic is there are some issues. For example, I have been doing this death trap, which is a fire incident in Dhaka for a long time. So that that story itself demands photos that are not gruesome.
I see.
Not body, because we have to also think about our audience. Because we should not traumatize them through our gruesome photos. So that is another the reason that some of my projects I did in black and white, only because to think that if it is in color, then the color dominates, not the subject. So I don't want
to take over. You're right.
So those are the main reasons for choosing black and white. But again, I can say that one thing, that if you want to survive, 99% magazine publish color. If you are Salgado, if you are James Nachtwey, then that 1% can survive doing black and white.
It's true. People usually really request that it's color. Even though sometimes, like the New York Times will sometimes make your colors print in black and white, right? But yeah. So Iqbal is asking, can AI take over storytelling documentary photography? What are your thoughts on this possibility?
Yeah, there is a possibility, because AI now, if I am talking 2024, but we have to wait and see how far it can go and how far it can take us, because technology is a huge challenge, advantage, and not always disadvantage. My concern and my take on that would be use AI in an authentic way, and use AI so that we can enrich the storytelling quality, not to just to dramatize photos and just to make it like surreal or something like that. So that way, I think it will be not a threat. Maybe it will be an advantage for those who can apply it well. But before applying it, you have to know it very well. You have to do research, which if you, because the thing again, I'm saying that man rules the machine. Machine doesn't rule the man. So it's again us. It's not again AI. The image are produced by the person behind the computer.
Mm-hmm.
So it's actually AI. It's the human brain.
Yeah.
So I think I'm not quite sure, and I don't want to say anything futuristic right now, but there are advantage and disadvantage using AI in documentary photography.
But I think
But the last thing is.
But you mean in this AI that you now mentioned, it's the AI editing, like
Not
color
exactly.
toning.
Not exactly the AI editing, but in other ways. I mean, for example, doing research, you use AI for doing a research.
I see. Yeah,
Yeah.
I do that too. But you also can, of course, with AI really create images, which is not photography, but like you can prompt to make an image.
Yeah, that is slowly growing, but I don't see that can be a threat to non-fictional documentary, because non-fictional documentary is always there and will be there with its own authentic understanding and value.
Yeah, exactly. But to keep them, but you do mean to keep them separate, not to start creating pictures with AI to publish them in newspapers.
Exactly. So I want to say that make it two ways. I mean, if you want to do fictional stories, use AI. If you want to do non-fictional, don't use AI, because AI is not photograph.
Exactly. The last question from the Q&A is from Asif, and then I have a last question for you. We're running a bit over time. I hope that's okay. Asif asks, a single image can encapsulate myriad narratives, each waiting to be unearthed by the keen observer. Is it not conceivable then that an editor confined by the constraints of time or a singular viewpoint might inadvertently overlook some of these hidden tales? What are your thoughts on this matter? I'm happy you're getting the questions, not me. That's not an easy question.
Yeah. that's it's a long question again.
I think to summarize it is, I think Asif is saying, what if one picture has different meanings in it and the photographer tries to tell different stories within one picture? What if a editor, you don't know the whole story sometimes as an editor. You get these pictures in and you might not select it because you think, okay, I don't like this one. So you might overlook some of these hidden stories. And Asif is asking, what are your thoughts on this matter? Do you have enough time as an editor as well to go through selections?
Now I understand the importance of every single image. Yes, of course, a good editor is viewing every image with time and knowledge and with the relevancy to each other. So if it is in a story, definitely every image should be reviewed properly. And if there is relevancy, then definitely it has demand. But again, then the first thing is the image should be perfect in terms of the standard. It's not just a random photo, but you cannot make an editor fool, because they are more knowledge. They know more diverse aspects of a single photo, even if it is single photo, even if it is unknown situation, because photo editor editors see thousands of best photographers work in a week and every week. So it's a kind of humor. Don't try to make photo editor full. It's really, yeah, it's really true. They know much better than the photographers. No, but to answer your question is that it's really difficult that good photo is not getting appreciation from a good editor. It doesn't happen very often.
Yeah, the knowledge is definitely gonna help you with that, right?
Also the diversity of knowledge is not only the technical knowledge, but knowledge about many things.
And someone else is now replying in the Q&A. Jaime, I think it is. He's saying that is where also the photographer's conviction comes in, convincing the editor, like advocate. He says you have to advocate for your images too, which is very true. If you really feel strongly about it, yeah, do that.
Well, that's why I said earlier that the editing process I used to give them space to talk, to defend, and listen their opinion about their work, because they were in the field and they were, and also it's important to respect their opinions, because maybe the photograph is one of their best photos, but it doesn't fit in the story in terms of the final editing. I often say, is this heartbreaking if I eliminate this?
Yes, true. Well, will it hurt someone? Yeah.
How this photo editing process work? We cannot, accommodate all your photos.
No, kill your darling.
We have to critical, and especially in the newspaper, the space is a very crucial aspect. It is in the newspaper. It's space means money.
True.
So yeah, it's very true. And in my experience working with the newspaper, we just given a short example, we actually at that particular day we got a fantastic photograph. So we kind of made a decision that okay, this is going to be a big size. But in the evening, there is an advertisement came in the
And there
front
goes
page.
the picture.
Yeah, with a big amount of money.
Yeah, painful.
And
yeah, it's not good. I have a last question, but there was one practical question that I saw in the chat. Someone asked, in the beginning you named the name of a book about editing. What is the name of the book?
pictures
Pictures?
on a page, sorry.
Pictures on the page.
Pictures on a page.
By who?
By Harold Robbins, if I'm not.
Okay, I put it in the chat. Oh, someone shared already a link to the book. That's great. Well, my last question to you is, I'm curious where you and the photography in Bangladesh, the newspapers and magazines will be in, let's say, 10 years. Will you be editing or photographing? And where will the media be in Bangladesh?
I would love to do both, but I would love to do editing, because that is lacking. That expert is lacking in our country, in our newspaper industry, and overall in our media. Not only newspaper, but the poor quality even in the television. We don't have director of photography. So that the quality of the broadcasting, especially news and other programs, the visual quality are not up to the mark. So as a whole, this visual literacy is very important for us, and especially for me as a futuristic plan. I would love to do the editing first, and of course, I love doing photography and I love doing my own project. in a long run, or in 10 years or maybe more, I would like to say that Bangladesh is shown in a different perspective, because most of the West knows Bangladesh in a very different way, which is kind of, it's a country of poverty, it's a country of corruption, it's a country of flooding. But I disagree. We have a lot of resources, we have a lot of positive things, and that counter narrative, I would really like to see that new photographers will bring that counter narrative and show and introduce a new Bangladesh to the world.
I love that. That's beautiful. Thank you so much, Abir, for sharing all your knowledge with everyone. There were a lot of people on this. And thanks everyone for asking all these lovely questions. And yeah, I hope to see everyone on the next 7 Insider. And thanks, Abir, for really being so open and sharing. And I wish the same for the stories about Bangladesh.
Thank you, and thank you, 7 Insider, for giving me this platform to talk about our world, because it's not often listened. So thank you so much, Ilvy. And I miss David. So maybe another session we'll talk together. And thank you, the audience. I'm really happy that you have joined and listen our conversation. And I'm really looking forward to help young photographers, and especially our news industry in Bangladesh.
Beautiful, thank you. And there's a lot of love coming into the chat for you as well. I want to say thank you. It was very interesting being a picture editor myself. Nice to listen about picture editing. Thank you so much. So yeah. Oh, and thank you from South Sudan. So there's people from all over thanking you.
Okay. Thank you so much from Bangladesh.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye, Abir. Bye, everyone. Bye.